Trade rumors are circling, free agents and names are also being rumored. We get the sense that maybe the Marlins are looking to make a move on Pablo Lopez almost imminently. If they do that, how can they fill the innings? One option, get in some veteran starters to let some of the young studs continue to develop in the minors. We're going to dig into the news that perhaps Johnny Cueto is on the list for the Miami Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins podcast. I, of course, am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter at MiamiMarlins_UK. No TikToks, no Instas. I'm too old. And if you are listening to the pod, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Yes, it's Tuesday, 20th of December. And if you are watching on YouTube, hit subscribe there too. Also, you will see the UK GOAT is back in the house. Sean Barrett, not on a Monday, it's on a Tuesday. But Sean, how are we doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Pete. I've got Twitter up while we talk. It's exciting time, isn't it?
It's that time of the year, or whatever it is. I don't know, but it is a time of the year. Literally, all of a sudden, the Marlins news is buzzing, kind of. And I guess the backdrop of this episode is the fact that Jon Morosi is out there saying that the Marlins, I don't think the word he's used is checked in. It's been overused, that word. Let's say it's they're keeping tabs on or something along those lines. But fundamentally, they are showing interest in Johnny Cueto. And the reason they're thinking about doing this is if they move one of their arms, they're going to need some innings. They're going to need someone to come in and fill a rotation spot. So you then get Craig Mish following up on that. Of course, he's our man, the Marlins insider, Craig Mish. And the talk there is if they do indeed look to move Pablo Lopez, this is the type of deal that perhaps the Marlins would make, signing a veteran in Johnny Cueto that's been there, seen it, done it. And actually, when you dig into it in 2022, he had a nice year, really nice year. So, Sean, let's start with this, the theory behind it, really, because if they do move Pablo or Trevor or Luzardo or anyone, any of this starting rotation, they're going to need to find some innings somewhere. And I like the idea and the concept of this. What about you?
Absolutely. We always talk about the idea that you can never have enough arms. And while we know that we've got a lot of stud pitching in the organisation, removing anybody is always going to be a risk. So bringing in a guy, like you said, a proven veteran. We were talking before offline about Gio Gonzalez coming in last year and or was it the year before? And we were all getting pretty excited. We talked about him for ages, and then it took a minute for us to remember his name. And this is a different approach. This is a real picture. This is a guy that's had a pretty decent year. So it will be interesting to see how the Marlins approach it. And obviously, the more exciting part of this is the fact that they're looking to add because potential trades for Pablo are starting to heat up, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll kind of come into the ramifications here in terms of the trade or trades and the intention, perhaps. But let's stay just with Cueto briefly, because I do. When you go and look at the performance, the recent performance, like you mentioned, he actually had a nice year in 22. And the money as well. He actually only was paid just over $4 million by the White Sox. And like I said, had a good year. The interesting bit is, what kind of financial package is he looking at? And, maybe this is why it's bringing into scope for the Marlins. They're going to maybe look to offer a 1-year deal, $4 or $5 million bucks, come in. He's been there, done it. There's a lot of young pitchers around. Like Johnny Cueto actually could be a real nice fit for the Marlins in terms of where they are with this young rotation.
Absolutely. And if you look at the contracts that have gone out for pitchers now, and I'm not talking about the big guys, I'm talking about the guys that have gone recently. Jordan Lyles got a 2-year contract in the last couple of days. That was crazy. But that speaks to where we are now, that he's still on the market. So these guys that are commanding 2-year deals are off the market now. So maybe that's where we are now. Guys try and just get that 1-year contract. And to be fair, Cueto in the last couple of years has had better years than Lyles, but Lyles has been there and done 30 starts last 2 years, whereas Cueto's not quite been there. So maybe that's what teams are looking at. Lyles being that guy that can come in and be a number 4, number 5 star every single day, whereas Cueto, you're wondering what you're going to get from him. The year was great. You know, it was typical of him. He's not a high strikeout guy and a command guy. So while the strikeouts were one of his lowest numbers of his career, so were the walks. So the K to walk rate was pretty similar to his career numbers. One other thing to call out is his home run to fly ratio was criminally low last year. So you'd expect some regression, you'd expect some bounce back, but Marlins Park would be the perfect park to make sure that you keep that number down. So if you're Cueto and at the moment all you can get is a 1-year deal, half a year in Miami, in Lone Depot Park, and then get traded to a contender or stay with the Marlins because they're a contender. I mean, it's Christmas, we can dream, right?
Absolutely.
It seems like a perfect fit for him.
It does.
It depends on what the rest of the market's out there. If there's a quasi contender out there, then maybe the Marlins can't get him. It'll be a Justin Turner situation. But if it's a collective of non-contenders, I think the Marlins are a perfect fit, mainly because of the park.
Me too. I was lambasting the fact that the free agent, the hitting free agents, turning down the dough from the Marlins because it suppresses their numbers. On the flip side, though, from the pitching side, perfect fit, right? I mean, there's no better place to go to. This is the dream situation. The other flip side of this, not the flip side, but a continuation here. You've got perfect park, Mel Stottlemyre, stud rotation, no pressure, tons of young guys. You know, if Cueto's thinking about what the future may hold for him in terms of, you know, coaching or still staying around the game, I mean, go and spend some time with Mel Stottlemyre. Go and spend some time kind of nurturing, a Jake Eder or Uri Perez or, Dax Fulton, whatever it might be. To your point, it feels like a great fit. And if only he is thinking, actually, I can only get a 1-year deal and I still want to play again next year or the year after, perfect spot. Lone Depot is the perfect landing spot for him. I hadn't thought about Cueto at all, to be honest with you, until the name flashed. Does sound like there are others in on him, so it doesn't sound like it's just truly, the Marlins and it's a single market situation. But to your point, this opportunity actually is pretty enticing, unless, of course, you've got one of the main ultra contenders in the big markets, maybe breathing it down his neck and offering. But I do wonder. I do think the fit is nice, and I like the concept. Like you said with Gio Gonzalez, they tried to do this a few years back, kind of add in a vet starter, eat some innings. And the other thing too is they may only need him for half a year. He's not done. He's not going to give you 200 innings probably anymore. But the Marlins maybe only need 100, 120 innings out of him, because by that time, who knows who's ready? Who knows where Sixto is? Is he back? Who knows where Uri Perez is? Has he just blown through AA and AAA and is ready? Can't be held back anymore? Jake Eder, is he back? The Marlins may only need half a year out of this guy because they've got too many studs that are ready to come down the chute. Exciting times. And this is always, hey, this gets my juices going when we start talking about the Marlins pitching. No doubt. On the flip side, though, Sean, it sounds like, again, if you believe the information that's being shared, it sounds like Pablo Lopez may be the most likely to be moved. I think you've always believed that was the most likely outcome as well, if they do move an arm, just because of the 2 years of control and the cost situation. Has anything changed on that front for you?
No, that's very much the case. I'm a pessimist. I know that. And the Marlins have made me that way, unfortunately. And I genuinely hope I don't rub off on you, Pete, because that would be the worst thing in the world. But yeah, no, the idea that Pablo's got 2 years of control, he's one of the most expensive pitchers that they've got, or he's going to become that soon. They're never going to get him locked up. We know that. They could, but won't. I think that definitely needs to be a T-shirt at some point.
It does.
So Pablo being moved, while he's at his highest, I think.
Yeah, he is.
You could say that, yes, the market might be more competitive at the trade deadline, but you need Pablo to have had a similar year. That was a concern when we got past the trading deadline, was how would he do down the stretch. As it is, pitched perfectly. So I think at the moment you take the profit. You take what you can get for Pablo, which is a genuine major league starter, or with potential of being an all-star. And obviously there's some gaps in that lineup right now that need filling.
There's some gaps, no doubt. I will ask you shortly where you think it is that Pablo may land. What is, what the clubs may be coming back. I think it's a little bit too much to get into right now. But before we do that, or while I let you dwell on it anyway, I'll let you know about our good friends over at Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You've got the NFL, of course. You've got and basketball. You've got it all covered, of course, at BetOnline.net. And if you love the sports podcast, and I assume you do, you can find more of those at BetOnline as well. And it's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right then, Sean, let's finish up with Pablo specifically. If indeed he is moved, who do you think are the most likely suitors based on what's happened in the market recently? The Yankees, I think, was a major one going and getting Rodon. All of a sudden, that kind of Yankees-Marlins hookup seems unlikely now. So where's your head at seeing what's happened in terms of free agency?
See, that's one of the concerning things, isn't it? We talk about the idea that Pablo, there are so many teams that need pitching, and they're going out and they're finding, and they're paying more and more obscure. Rodon's not in this category, but teams are signing more and more obscure starting pitchers to 2-3 year contracts, to the point where you're like, is there a market left for Pablo? So it is a concern. I mean, there's always going to be teams out there for a number. We spoke about him being a number one. Those numbers that he gives you is number one pitcher, but number two for sure. So there's always going to be a market for that. The Pirates obviously are just an obvious fit, because I think we struggled to see that fit before, but now that he's come out and said that he wants to trade, that's Reynolds, of course. That seems like, if the Pirates' hands are tied and they've got to trade him away, but it would be good for the optics of it. They can't keep a player there that's unhappy. You saw what the Marlins did with JT. As soon as he said he didn't want to be here anymore, it was a case of, right, we've got to get a trade for him. And I think that's where the Pirates are. We like the fit, obviously, just because of the return from Arizona, but I think they're more a team in a rebuild, or they're building up. So Trevor Rogers, a guy with more control, is probably more likely. But obviously, we're talking about bringing in Cueto on the idea that it's going to be Pablo, and that's where the reports are. But there's no reason why it couldn't be Trevor to Arizona. No. If the Marlins are out there only looking at one option, then they're not doing this right. They need to be playing all sides of this. So at the moment, it's too early to tell, but it's news. It's positive news. It's excitement. This hasn't happened yet in this off season. So at the moment, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can be excited about the potentials.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. And like you said, we're jumping aboard any news, anything, any level of excitement. And actually, sending Pablo Lopez away is not a level of excitement that I'm ready to accept yet, to be honest with you. But it's one of them. If they're not going to spend and they can't spend, it's kind of like, do you want to or can you? Because players perhaps don't want to come, which is what I talked about yesterday. But with trade situations, the players have no choice. Doesn't matter. You go and get your guy if you want. Pablo Lopez, interesting name, but to your point, I don't think we should just kind of focus in solely on Pablo. So we'll wait and see. I do think the sneaky one is, for me, is the Twins. So I've got my eyes on the Twins and Marlins maybe doing some business. I feel like the Twins are in the mix, and maybe have a couple of pieces the Marlins could be interested in. I'm not solely convinced about the Reyes opportunity, but there may be a deal to be had there. Okay, I wanted to just spend the last 5 minutes, mate, talking about an old friend of ours from last offseason when I started with Locked On Marlins. And we went through every team, finding a trade for the Marlins, if everyone recalls. And if you didn't listen to that series, go back and listen to it. It was an absolutely stunning series. When the lockout was happening, guys, there was nothing happening. So me and Sean proposed 30 trades each, 29 trades, actually. But one of my darlings from a reliever perspective, and listen, guys, we had the same requirement back in last offseason that we do now. We need a closer. We still do, in my opinion. And I was all over Craig Kimbrel. Expiring deal on a team that was looking to sell. It made so much sense. In the end, the Dodgers went away and did a deal. Kimbrel had a mixed year, I would describe it as, in 22. Started as the closer, actually didn't end up as the closer. 22 saves, a sub-4 ERA, so it wasn't a stinker. But by Kimbrel's standards, it wasn't perhaps what the Dodgers were looking for. I wonder, Sean, if this is a nice buy low opportunity maybe on Craig Kimbrel, or you're probably looking at the numbers right now. Is he cooked?
No, he's far from cooked. I mean, let's not mistake him for the ace closer that he was, that lockdown guy. He's gotten older, and relievers, they do struggle once they lose that velocity, once they lose that strikeout stuff. More so than pitchers, I think, because starting pitchers seem to learn to be a bit more crafty, whereas relievers try and hold on to that flame throwing style. So his Ks are down. It's still 10 per 9, so it's not like he's chopped liver. The walks have gone up a little bit, but nothing crazy like it was during his huge struggles in Chicago. I think the fact that it is a buy low, because it is, and because he's still on the market. There's a reason why he's still on the market. Could that be because he wants too much and he's not quite ready to step down toward the offers, or is it just because there's been no offers yet? We don't know, obviously. But there's nothing in those numbers over the last 2 years that doesn't scream better than what the Marlins currently have in their bullpen. So that's true. If it's a 1 year prove it deal, again, the way we talked about Cueto, and the Marlins should have first dibs on any of these kind of guys that are still on the market, because there's not been much in the way of a market for them. So he's a perfect buy low, comes into Lone Depot Park, pitches well, and then goes off to a contender. These are the things that the Marlins, you've got to take the benefits that you have when you can, and aging 1 year pitchers who've still got a little bit of life in them. That's where the Marlins can do some deals.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking the same that you mentioned there of, that all of the benefits the Cueto, or the reasons the Cueto would want to sign with the Fish, it's exactly the same for Kimbrel. It is, here's the things that you're thinking about from a reliever and a closer perspective. Is there a job available? Yes. Is the team trying to be good? Yes. Is the ballpark a nice one to pitch in? Yes. I think in many ways it does fit the brief there for Kimbrel. Like, maybe the Marlins would try to find a way to create a creative contract that meant that if he did have a stunning year, i.e. like an all-star caliber year, or absolutely popped, that they'd have a way to bring him back at a slightly below kind of market rate or whatever. So kind of like a one with a team option that, would be beneficial for the Marlins. So we'll wait and see. But I do remember I was absolutely all over him last year. I felt the fit was perfect. And actually, I feel the same now. The fit is perfect. The Marlins aren't going to get the best closers out there, because the teams are going to go in, like we've seen, and pay. They're going to have to take some calculated risks. And I think with Kimbrel, he's done it. He's done it before to a really high level, and he'll want to keep doing it. For me, perfect fit. All of a sudden, the Marlins' average age on this roster could be absolutely skyrocketing. We're bringing in Cueto and Kimbrel. Boy, oh boy. But needs must. I do think, though, Sean, and we haven't spoken about the bullpen a lot, to be honest with you, and we should have done. And they've made some nice moves, but I do like this. I do like this Alex Reyes fit as well. And I do think that's a huge upside play for the Marlins that they should look to take. Kimbrel and Reyes into this bullpen with some young guys and some kind of, older hands knocking around, lefties particularly, all of a sudden it becomes an intriguing bullpen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as intriguing as a bullpen's going to get for my Marlins, it is that case of they're bringing in all these misshapen toys and hoping to create some excitement with them, and to a certain degree, that's worked before. You look at what they did with Romo, to a lesser degree Bass, but still that final year with us was very good, and that's been the case for my fanship of the Marlins. Have never really had this fantastic bullpen, or at least they've never gone into the season expecting that because of the high quality guys they've brought in. But at least with Kimbrel and with Reyes, there's some buzz, there's some name, there's some pedigree there, rather than bringing in independent ball pitchers like Anthony Bender. Now, it worked, and I like Bender, but that's my point. Is these are guys that we've heard of. These are guys that have, in Kimbrel's case, saves, his save numbers would be the highest probably as far as a Marlins pitcher we've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there wouldn't be a pedigree better than Craig Kimbrel's. And, Alex Reyes has definitely shown if he's healthy, he can absolutely do a job as well, and would be a very intriguing option. Clearly, there's a hook up there too, like Sandy Alcantara is, he's in his ear. There's like a shared agent, a brother of Alex Reyes, I believe, is Sandy's agent. So, like, there's some connections there where Alex Reyes could be a Marlin. I could absolutely see that. And I can absolutely see Kimbrel. And I'd like to say that if they do take these kind of diamond in the rough moves with the vets, that they have a contractual way to benefit from it next year too. That's the other thing. I mean, we're probably getting, I'm thinking a little bit too far ahead. Like, at the end of the day, they got to sign with the team if the Marlins want to. But Kim has said she's looking to address the bullpen. She already has in some ways with some minor moves and some small trades. But I think what she's alluding to is we're going to add in a leverage piece. Because as we saw last year, Bender in the 7th, great. Bassman in the 7th and 8th, great. It's a different game in the 9th. And the Marlins just need a guy that's been there and done it and they can rely on. In April and May, we were stung by the bullpen just being poor. Other problems started to materialize later in the year, but early in the year, it was the fact that Floro got hurt. They had no real backup, and it was then Bender, Salsa, Scott, all of which they just weren't up to the job. Sean, we're going to leave it there, mate. We are 22 minutes in. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, guys, and joining myself, Sean Barrett, the UK GOAT, on Tuesday, the 20th of December. As I mentioned, there's an upcoming 3-part extravaganza with Matt Williams that's on deck. We are recording tomorrow. The episodes will be phased over the Christmas period. We're going to be digging into Brian De La Cruz, into Jesus Luzardo, Trevor Rogers. There'll probably be some Jazz Chisholm talk as well, as we spoke about him last year. So stay tuned for that one, guys. The reality is, has been, if there is news, if there is a discussion point, trust me, Locked On Marlins will be here. Thanks again for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. Peter Pratt, Sean Barrett signing out, and we'll be back soon.